Water and Light Commission meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Rena,
Yes, Mayor Morris.
here.
Commissioner Elmer.
Here.
Commissioner Macy Baker is excused this evening. Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Thank you. We have 3 items listed on the consent agenda tonight. Do I have any commissioners that would like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Nope. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? So Commissioner Johnson, a second from Commissioner Elmer. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Including in the packet are accounts payable on purchasing. Does any commissioner have any questions on those items? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move forward. We have no employee introductions tonight. Next, we have our consultant partners, Brent Keller, our forester. Davis.
Okay.
Hi, Brent.
Thank you, Mayor. Starting here with 2025 stumpage sales, the final piece of the contractual obligations for the 7/31/90/100 road sale that was purchased by Stimson was getting proof that they paid the harvest taxes for that sale last year. And encloses a letter from ODR confirming that they did pay the taxes on that. And so that was the final item to button up this sale. So I recommend the release of the performance payment bonds and the cash deposit of $25,000.
We want to go ahead and do that now before we go to the rest of the report.
We can go ahead and do that. I think Mr. Keller is seeking a motion to release performance of payment bonds and cash deposit of $25,000 to Stimson Lumber Company on the 7/31/90/100 road.
Perfect. Do I have a motion to accept that? Commissioner Elmer, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Anderson. Any further discussion? Okay.
And then also 2025
All those
sale.
in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry.
That's totally fine. I had a little pause there anyway. Go ahead.
Just try to keep things moving. Also 2025 sale, in terms of 2025 sales, the 350 Boundary Road sale is underway. Olson Brothers Logging's cutting and hauling from that sale. 36 loads have been shipped as of last week to Stimson and other destinations, but they're moving through that pretty quickly. So by next month, they'll be nearly complete. And I would note that being a 2-year sale, that we, or the Water and Light, has received all that estimated total value of dollars. So it was sold in February of 2025. The end of July 2025, half of that's due. And then the end of January this year, the other half's due. So they'd already paid that entire value before they even started. So now they're just working off of that. And we're keeping track of that accounting as we go here. So I'll have a little more to report next month on volume shipped and so on. 2026 sales that were sold this year. The 100/114 road sale is entirely complete in terms of the logging. There is some project work ongoing, including road brushing and some culvert replacement. And I want to discuss the volume value here. The final volume cut out 20% over my original estimate. Final value, that final volume was about 1.9 million board feet. The final value of about $1.3 million is 15% over the estimate. So I dug into this a little ways to see what causes that, because we do a pretty intense cruise on the sale. So where we have like 3 plots per acre, and we generally will nail these volume and value estimates. But it is cruising, it is an estimate. We're not measuring every tree. So a couple key reasons things didn't come out as exact were there was no hemlock or hardwoods captured in the cruise. But yet between that and the pulp, there's that counted for about 100,000 board feet. And then we always build in a hidden defect into all the species, but it's mostly Doug fir out there. It's a really old timber. And so now we're seeing on that boundary unit, we had a load going to Stimson, like 6,000 feet gross. It was like 15, 100 feet net. And they're finding so much conch and rot. But you just don't know when you're cruising because you're just looking at the surface characteristics. You might see some conch out there, but you're not sure. And so we always factor in some hidden defects so we don't overestimate. Well, in this case, the defect wasn't there. So if you take that out, we'd have only been about 5% over on the fir. So that's why it cut out more than we estimated. We just there was things that weren't accounted for in the cruise, and there wasn't as much defect as we anticipated. And the reason that like we're 20% over on volume, but only 15% over on value is that larger amount of volume, a lot of that's represented by lower value species. So it doesn't track exactly. There's some fur there, but the pulp is $250 a ton, which would be, $40 a thousand or something.
What was the age of that timber?
It was 100, 120.
Okay, so it was the older.
But it's a kind of a mix. That stuff it's 2 units. The 1 unit by the treatment plant was probably more like 80, and then up at the 114 road and down over the hill more towards Haskins, it's probably 150.
Okay.
But this includes the trees that were right there that we took out before they fell on the treatment plant. Okay.
And then I just mentioned the 101 road sale, which is the 2026 sale. That's a 2-year contract that Simpson bought, but they are planning to harvest that in 2027. So, and then what's not on here is that when I wrote this last Thursday morning, we were not in fire season. And a lot of Oregon we're usually towards the end of, or towards the last areas to get, declared for fire season. And that did start Monday at 12:01 in the morning, right after midnight. So now we are in fire season. The operators out there, including the road brusher, have fire wagons with them. The road brushing is going to be done here in about a week.
So is the 15th always the date? The beginning of fire season?
No, it's usually right around the 4th, it seems like. Now in Washington, they just April 15th is fire season. Doesn't matter if it's raining out or snowing, or here they kind of look at the conditions by these areas. We're in Northwest District 3. There's East Lane County and Western Oregon units, and so they look at them by area in terms of fuel moisture and rainfall. And so us being up here more towards the coast generally comes later. So but the water and light fire truck, and I believe that I know the fire truck's there. I believe the tender's headed up there, and then the operators, loggers have their fire wagon there. The brushers got theirs, and so
You got a head nod from the back of the room that is correct.
Perfect.
I got a question. You said that Boise that's Stimson's prepaid for all of it. How does that work? Is it on a 2-year sale? We get paid in advance on that, or because I know a couple of them last year. We were counting the loads that were coming in, and you were tracking that.
right.
What defines between being prepaid and being paid as they already?
Well, and like next year, they got 36 loads here, but I didn't have any payment information. They hadn't made a payment yet, and I could see the load count. So you're not getting a lot of information. Next month, even though they've prepaid, I'll be reporting the loads and what the volume and value is to date that they're working off of.
But the estimate, I think, is what.
So when you give them an estimate, they prepay that. What would happen if it was the other way? I mean, I think it's great that we're under and we get, there's more there. Obviously, that's best scenario. What if it was less than?
Yeah, if they
find that back to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's what would happen. I don't think we've had that happen. It'll probably happen this year. No.
I can't
We-
I don't mean to jinx
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
But no, I think, yeah, but that's what would happen.
that's how it happened.
We track it and then, usually there's a little bit at the end that they make a payment, a small payment.
Yeah, they usually go beyond the estimate most of the
But
time.
if they didn't, then that's just how it's set up. We'd have to pay back some of that. You know, so.
And July 31st is an important deadline date for us, so either through logging the sale and paying us incrementally, or if they plan to not do it until next year, we have to receive half of the value of the sale by July 31st.
Okay.
So if they don't even plan to log this year, they gotta give us a half payment, but if they're logging as they go and they start in like March or April, and they've already hit that half value, then they're good to go
Then
and
they're
can
good to
keep
go.
logging and keep paying us.
Okay.
And some folks, they're really motivated to not make that half payment. So they want to be done by the, you know,
Yeah, I would have.
the end of July, you know, so.
Yeah.
And sometimes if they're close, if they're like a week away from, you know, having half of a cut, then we won't mess with the half payment. But, yeah, so does that answer?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
Any other questions for Brent? Thank you, Brent.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brent.
Next up, we have a presentation from City Manager Adam Garvin. Come on up.
All right. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yeah. Members of the commission and members of the community, thanks for having me this evening to present a semi-annual report of the happenings of what's going on around the city of McMinnville. John will be joining us next week for the water and light side of this presentation to city council. And this is to further the collaboration and understanding of what both sides of the charter are doing. So feel free to ask any questions throughout. I'm going to start with some high level points and then we'll get into more department by department as we move through. We wrapped up our budget process. Council will vote on adopting that this next council meeting on the 23rd. Some of the highlights from that is the library is going to be reopening on Sundays from 12 to 5. That had an additional expense of about $78,000 that covers security and staffing. Last week on the 9th, we voted on the DDA for the Northwest Rubber redevelopment site on Alpine, which will bring on about 150 to 171 workforce housing units of the 300 housing units called for in the Gateway area. And that will bring a purchase price of 4.7 million when it eventually closes, which will be sometime between November of 27 and as late as June of 31. But that developer will be making those carrying costs when we get later on into that agreement if it runs that way. And that's to give them time to get their state and federal funding for the affordable housing aspect of it. Restoration of seasonal park staffing. So last year and historically we've been understaffed, and so we had been using some contract dollars for that. So it was a budget neutral decision, but we wanted to bring some staff back in house to have some more responsive management of our park system. The old Sheridan and Cypress Road crossing, after we had a death of a citizen out there, engineering did some traffic improvement, and we got some short-term solutions to improve that. There's still some longer-term solutions that will be part of our TSP plan that we're going to be launching shortly. But there's a visible difference out there. If you've driven that road or walked that road, it's a vast improvement. Currently under ADA accessibility improvements citywide, which is our ADA plan, which is separate from the ODOT ramps that you see going in along 99. That's a federally funded project that ODOT's carrying out around all those ramps. So that's not the city's dollars putting in all the new ADA ramps. And then the pool had some new state regulations, which drove some additional staffing needs to meet the lifeguard specs. and that's gonna be about $148,000 addition in cost. Our airport's getting some investments. We have a new FBO out there. So historically, we've had an FBO operate as the airport manager. Last year, we brought on John Pascal from Salem, who's our airport manager now, doing great work out there. So we separated those. So now the fixed base operator does fixed base operator things, and the airport manager is a city employee that does airport manager things. We also are bringing our street sweeping system program back in-house. That's gonna allow us to A, increase service levels, but B, also put a full-time city staff person on our street system so they can keep an eye on, branches that are grown in front of stop signs and potholes that are starting to form before they start bending rims and things like that. So having a full-time person that has their eyes on our vast city streets that has a continually declining pavement condition index because we underfund our street maintenance. That's an important first step in bringing that. Initially, when we did, street sweeping, it was more of a convenience and about cleanliness. But now with our state and federal partners, it is a requirement of the city to do so. This has a higher upfront cost for capital, but it's gonna give us long-term benefits. And as you look out through the life cycle of these equipment purchases, it'll save us money long-term. Improve service levels and emergency response. So with our new police union contract, we landed on that. And then after that, we were evaluating doing more of a peak demand service model. And so they're going to be going back to a 10-hour shift instead of a 12-hour shift, which will create an overlap day on Wednesdays. So they won't have as much overtime. So that'll be a cost savings, which offsets some of the increased costs of the contract. And then it'll also allow us to do more training on their overlap day without having to pay them to come in to do overtime. And then we'll be able to, they're going to have hours that overlap. So day shift will overlap with swing shift and swing shift overlaps. So you'll have certain hours of the day where that peak demand is there and we'll have more officers on the street. In addition to that, we partnered with MIP and Visit McMinnville on relaunching the mountain bike program. So we'll have officers on mountain bikes throughout the downtown core and through the park system. They're not going to be out there every day, but we'll use them for major events like Alien Days and the air show. And then we'll also deploy them when there's problematic areas like along the Joe Dancer Trail and things like that, which also gives us a retention and recruitment tool as well because they have an additional task besides just being a patrol car. Some of the operational improvements we've had, we're going to go away from our phone system and go to a Zoom phone system, which will save us about $40,000 a year. We did a different firewall when our firewall was coming up for renewal. That saved us about $20,000. And then a Hyper-V migration is also an IS and IT thing, save us about another $20,000 to $30,000 a year. And then we brought paid leave organ in-house through our HR department, which saves us about $120,000 a year. Balance the general fund budget, presented a budget with 2.6 months operating reserves. Our city policy is 2 months. Last month, the budget had a month and a half when it was adopted. And the main emphasis was on stability, asset preservation. We put $1 million into deferred maintenance this year for the upcoming budget. And historically, we've been spending about $100,000 in that area. We've also brought all those maintenance projects into the admin part of the budget, so they're easy to track and transparent for the citizens and for our staff to know what projects and what their budget should be. And then long-term stability over organizational growth. So want to right-size the organization, make sure it's stable before we look at expanding. City council met with me right after I came on as an interim, the end of August. They developed these 5 top priorities along with a bunch of other priorities. The ones in green we've worked through. The Parks SCCs is a work in progress. We'll have another work session on that in August, with some community partners and stakeholders and get some further policy direction from council. And then, the new pool and community center, we have an hour and a half work session next Tuesday, the 23rd, and I'll also show you a spec rendering, which has some additional tweaks since the slideshow was sent to Trina, but it's close to what is going to be presented on Tuesday. Human resources front, we have a park and rec director that we've extended an offer to. We had 86 applicants, 40 of them moved forward for my review. I moved 14 of those to digital interviews, and then we brought 3 of those to in-person panels and meet and greet. And then I took 2 of those to one-on-ones with myself. Extended an offer to one of them. I would have been happy with either candidate. It was nice to have a very strong applicant pool, but real excited for that individual. We'll make a public announcement of who that is on the 23rd. She wanted to provide personal notice to all her team, and we wanted to respect the confidentiality of that. And her first day is slated to be July 27th. Recruitment and retention strategies. So we've revamped some of our police recruitment strategies. Before we would wait until we got a few in the queue, so we had enough to hold a full process. Now, as soon as you apply, you're going through review, so we can start the background process. What we were experiencing was people would apply for multiple organizations. While they're waiting in the queue for us, somebody else starts their process. Now they're on a list with them, so they no longer want to partake in our process. So we didn't want to have them fall through the cracks. And then continued organizational development on initiatives supporting the council priorities. So we'll meet again the end of August and give council an opportunity to revamp those. HR also worked through my permanent appointment to city manager, and right now our biggest vacancy outside of the tentative park and rec director spot is our city engineer. And I know that has some effects here for the Water and Light Commission as well. So we'll continue to work on that. And some of the ad packages we had in this year's budget also focused on planning and engineering to create some further efficiencies. So use the same amount of resources, but change some job positions to hopefully get more throughput in a quicker fashion out of both of those departments. Celebrating 150 years this year since incorporation. That'll all commence or all come to our capstone on October 17th. We are looking to do a parade and have a MAC 150 birthday celebration in City Park. We'd love to see a water and light float in there. And I'm sure the mayor will be reaching out about other ideas she might have.
We had that discussion before this meeting.
So we look to work with a variety of different organizations and stakeholders and community partners to represent, the past 150 and also look towards the future. This is a logo that was designed in-house by our communications and engagement manager, Noel. And you'll start seeing that around. We have some window clings that the MDA and the chamber are going to start distributing. We have some lapel pins and some other swag, but we're also encouraging organizations to host their own things. And this will really kick off this week with our summer fun program. And you'll start seeing that through the park system. Now we're just going to go department by department. Library, we talked about the Sunday hours. The other thing, they were fortunate to receive a $10,000 Carnegie Foundation grant. And they continue to have strong partnerships with Friends of the Library and the Library Foundation. The youth summer reading programs kicking off. There wasn't much change in the library's budget this year outside of the addition of the Sunday hours. They did come to the budget process with some proposed cuts around children's books and things like that, but I felt it was important, as did they, to keep those and make sure that we're leaning into our youth and the literacy of our youth. So those never came out of the budget. Park and Rec. So after not having an elevator at the community center for a number of months, we have a new elevator there. With the push of Mayor Morris, we completed a pilot project of the Upper City Park environmental design. So if you went through City Park this time last year, you would not have seen the openness that this photo showed. And that was in partnership with our parks and parks crew, as well as Sean Slowick from A&R Tree Service and his crew. Senior Center, we've expanded some programming there. Aquatic Center, we talked about that. The pros plan implementation of that is ongoing even as a SDC conversation, which is the main funder of that. But there still is some work we can do with the budget we currently have. Definitely our community center and our aquatic center are major two aging assets. And here's probably what most of you wanted to hear about. This is the new rendering for a new park and rec facility at the Miller site that Water and Light currently owns, and we have under a purchase sale agreement that expires in December this year. John and I have been in conversations around what that would look like to extend that, or how we can make sure this site still stays viable. At the 23rd council meeting, council will give direction if they want to go for a November bond effort or if they want to go for a May bond effort. They were aligned that they want to go back out in our January work session. At that work session, there seemed to be alignment around a sub $80 million number. We'll see where that goes Tuesday night. But the red part of this is going to be pre-engineered metal building. The light blue part is going to be CMU, and then the dark blue is metal stud and mass timber is the concept design right now. And this has changed a lot over the last 4 months, but basically has a 8-lane. One design has an 8-lane comp pool with seating for 400. There's a recreation pool there. There's a gymnasium. There's a gymnastic space, group exercise, workout area with sauna, binary lockers, as well as non-binary lockers, and some event space as well. Police department, we talked about a little bit of this already. The other thing that I didn't touch on is we're still pursuing. Last time I came and spoke, we talked about Oregon State Police getting us an intoxilizer so we could up our DUI enforcement. How that ended up rolling out through OSP was they wanted to replace all their 8,000 models with the 9,000s. They're about done with that, and then we'll get our 9,000 eventually. Should be this calendar year, and then we can start processing DUIs at the MAC police station instead of taking them to the county initially. Our records management system is another thing that I talked about in my last presentation. That's hit some implementation roadblock with the software provider around their e-ticketing software, and so that's should have been wrapped up about this time, and they're targeting a fall date now. We just want to make sure that it's fully functional before we put it in our officers' hands. We've hired 7 sworn officers and 1 non-sworn employee since July of 25. We still have about 6 vacancies at the PD, just through attrition. We had a couple 30-year-old retirements, as well as we've had people move out of state and just leave the profession overall. So we're still challenged with vacancies, but we seem to have momentum in our applicant pool and seeing stronger applicants every cycle. Northwest Rubber, we touched on this earlier, but this is the site if you're not familiar with it. The little offshoot where that orange arrow is, was initially a concept area for commercial development, but that's gonna be reserved for open space, and then we'll have an agreement on an open space agreement, so that can be used by all in the city and not just those that live at that development. Here's a photo of the improvements we talked about on Cypress and Old Sheridan. This flashing beacon is great. If you go a little bit further back, they moved a speed sign that used to be similar to where that no parking sign was, maybe, or a little further back, and they moved the speed sign to the top of the hill by Goucher. And so now when you're coming down Old Sheridan, it prompts you to slow down before you get into that corridor. Makes it a lot safer for the pedestrians. And airport. So Jerry Trimble Helicopters, who's been out there for a number of years, is our new FBO. That operating agreement was in April of 26. Warehouser acquired the Potcake Aviation Hangar. They're launching a firefighter pilot project out of old Department of Defense Blackhawks that they've put a custom Warehouser paint scheme on. Initially, that's going to be 2 Blackhawks, and they'll have a full press release once both those get here. But pretty exciting things happening out at the airport. The Warehouser Blackhawk project is exciting, especially if it expands to their full scope. They're all very well-paid jobs to support the operations of those. And those are on Warehouser's website right now, and happy to see that taken off. The mayor and I had the opportunity to see behind the scenes of the Golden Knights the first week of June. And that's a photo that the mayor took up in the air about 8 to 10,000 square or 10,000 feet above sea level, right before that tandem jumped out. And then we went and saw some of them land as well. The air show will be here in August 14th through 16th. The Blue Angels will be here this year. So that's always a big draw. You know, the air show's always busy, but when the Blue Angels are here, it seems to swell it quite a bit. Our perimeter fence replacement project was awarded, and it actually came in significantly under bid by about 30%. And so we're going to get a lot more fence done. So you will see that airport look substantially different from a security standpoint, and believe by the end of fall is when that should be done. We have some protected birds out there that we have to work around. And then JTH is also has a grant request in right now to build a new FBO terminal out there. So that World War II Kwanzaa hut could be going away. Oh,
So Jerry Trimble.
Jerry Trimble, yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. I'll make sure of it. Everybody knows.
Any questions?
How was that tandem jump? Kind of looked like you.
Not yet.
On the same page.
Good presentation, you know, being part of this all the way along, but seeing it all in one place like this. You've done a lot in the last, since you've been here, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Ed.
Okay, gonna move on. To the occurrence requests, staff reports. Amy Phillips, you're up. Our resource manager.
Thank you. Good evening. So I would like to take a little time this evening to share with the commission some information regarding our power contract with BPA, which will hopefully help inform a future decision that you'll be asked to consider. So last October, the commission accepted and signed the BPA provider of choice power sales agreement. This contract will serve to meet the power needs of McMinnville Water and Light and our customers through 2044, when our current agreement expires in 28. McMinnville purchases a load following product from BPA, which serves a customer's energy and peak net requirements on an hourly basis. The load following product carries, BPA carries the planning obligation to meet our peak load needs, allowing customer to benefit from load service certainty while still retaining the flexibility to develop non-federal resources. McMinnville's chosen this product because the nature of our load, specifically with the steel mill, requires our power service to be responsive to large fluctuations in demand. This past January, BPA initiated its contract high watermark process to determine how much tier 1 capacity is available to its customers. BPA's tier 1 system is comprised of the output of the 31 federal dams, hydro dams, as well as the Columbia Generating Nuclear Plant. The firm output of the system is going to be set at 7,250 average megawatts for the duration of the provider of choice contracts. And the access to this tier 1 power provides the clean, reliable service at affordable rates that we've come to appreciate from BPA. Customers can either meet their above contract high watermark power needs with non-federal generation or through purchasing a tier 2 product from BPA that will be provided at cost. The final contract high watermarks were published in May, and on May 28th specifically, and our contract will be updated to reflect that number. The contract language requires utilities to submit an election for how they plan to serve their above contract high watermark load within 60 calendar days from that day, from May 28th. So that deadline has been established by BPA as July 27th of 2026. And we'll be back to make that decision at the July meeting. So in the packet, there's a table that shows McMinnville's forecasted load through the provider of choice contract term. And it's demonstrated in the table that our contract high watermark allocation is not sufficient to meet our load needs. Therefore, we do have an above high watermark load to serve. In 2024, we completed an integrated resource plan with a consultant that identified the best option for McMinnville, most cost-effective and reliable to meet our needs would be a BPA tier 2 product. So within the contract, BPA offers customers 4 choices on how to serve their above high watermark load. They range from an all long-term tier 2 product to a combination of a long-term tier 2 product and flexible options, which is a short-term product, vintage or other non-federal resources. The long-term tier 2 product comes with the greatest level of certainty and rate stability. And BPA will plan for that well in advance of the need, as opposed to a short-term tier 2 product that is acquired every rate period and is more susceptible to market conditions and pricing, and does carry a certain level of risk that those loads that request short-term tier 2 may not be met. So pursuant to the language in Exhibit C of our contract, McMinnville shall elect one of the 4 options to serve our above high watermark load, which shall apply for the duration of our agreement. There is a provision in the agreement that allows for customers a a one-time right to request a change to its long-term tier two, a reduction. We cannot increase it, but we can reduce it, and incorporate the flexible path. BPA will update the customers above high water mark load amounts through forecasting an official process every 2 years, each rate period. And that will set the amount of tier two purchase requirement for the 2-year rate period. The provider of choice contract also includes a provision that offers customers the opportunity to incorporate non-federal resources to serve their load outside of that process and without impacting our contract high water mark. This is called the tier one allowance amount, whereby BPA will allow customers to incorporate up to 5 megawatts of nameplate capacity of resources. It's an aggregate amount. It could be one resource or multiple. We can incorporate with some conditions met, we can incorporate those resources without a reduction to our tier one amount. So that is, that's important to consider in this decision because it does provide that opportunity that that we can do that in the future if the right opportunity should arise. It does come with some requirements that it has to be connected within our distribution system and applied to load as it's generated. We can't remarket that output or anything like that. Currently, McMinnville Water and Light does not have plans to invest in any non-federal resources and recognizes that BPA's long-term tier two product offers the certainty and the rate stability that that we need to meet our above high watermark needs. It's also consistent with our integrated resource plan and those results. And staff will plan to return to the commission next month and have a formal request for an election to submit to BPA by July 27th.
So you're recommending at this point, option C? I just want to clarify that. Is that
Option A.
option A? Okay.
Mhm. Option A is an all long-term tier two product that we have recognized through our integrated resource plan and through conversations with BPA and the terms and language in the contract to be best suited to our needs. It does provide that long-term certainty. It will likely come at a comparatively lower cost than some of the other products because BPA will incorporate into that long-term tier two cost pool. They will incorporate any firm surplus tier one power that is not used to serve load. So that'll get rolled into that cost pool, hopefully bringing that rate down. That's assuming that the tier one rate is the most affordable rate, which is what's projected. Market prices are significantly higher. And non-federal resource prices can be costly and widely variable depending on the resource. So we recognize option A as the one that's best suited to McMinnville's needs.
So Jamie, what's the difference in cost between tier one and tier two?
Well, I can't speak to what it will be in 2029, but today, our tier one average rate is roughly $45 a megawatt hour. That includes, that's a fully loaded rate, an average cost. Tier two is $70 a megawatt hour.
So this is one of the reasons why we're trying to do as much conservation now. Is to keep that chart, or the chart she has in here, that tier two purchase as low as possible when we start.
Right.
When you have to go to tier two, do the existing customers stay at tier one? And anybody new coming on go to tier two?
That's going to be a conversation we'll have to have.
Right. So the way it is structured now through our contracts with our two industrial customers is that they are allocated a share of the tier one, of McMinnville's tier one amount based on the, similar to how BPA calculated it based on a historical actual. It's likely that that's how we'll approach it in the next contracts with those customers, that they'll receive an allocation of high water mark. And then any growth in the distribution system will likely be melded in. Any tier two growth will be melded into those costs. Any above high watermark growth that can be attributed to our two contract customers will be assigned to them. Those costs will be passed through, most likely. Any new large load that may come into our system, like John said, we can have further discussions, but if that load pushes McMinnville further into a tier two product, that cost would be assigned. This is all based on a forecast that shows that McMinnville will have a tier two or above high watermark need in year one of the agreement. So there is no more tier one to be had or to be shared for any new loads that come online. So.
And I would also add that to Jamie's point about new large loads, so that would be 3 megawatts or larger, and those are negotiated contracts. They're not specific rates that we have for like our distribution.
Yes, that's right.
Well, they could be passed through or it could be a negotiated rate.
Right. But our rate schedules stipulate that anything over 3 megawatts is going to be a contractual negotiation. Anything under that would be considered a commercial customer, and that would be rolled into the distribution costs.
Oh, no, I think you answered it. It sounds like if we got a large one coming in, they could be almost all tier two.
Correct.
Yes.
Any other questions for Jamie right now?
One thing on the option A, you said that's the most stable pricing, is that correct?
That's right.
And so that's probably why you want to recommend that one.
Yes. Yeah, it provides the certainty that we're looking for. And also considering that McMinnville doesn't have any plans to invest in any other non-federal resources or develop those ourselves. We don't have a reason to request a flexible path where we want to incorporate that.
And I would-
Because that puts the obligation on Water and Light to come up with those resources. If it's not a long-term tier two rate product, then we are obligated to serve that load however we can. And so this option A puts all that responsibility on BPA to serve our load at a long-term, stable and certain rate.
If we were going to develop something, it would probably be at a higher cost tier two. Because we'd also need to get RSS, support services, we need to get transmission. So there's a lot of other components, not just the development cost that would add to that rate.
And a lot of that is detailed in our integrated resource plan, those project costs and bringing those to load, what other ancillary services would be needed. So it's more than just the energy. It's also sufficient capacity and transmission and resource support, like John mentioned.
I'm gonna challenge that, saying there's no such thing as a stupid question. But I want to understand something. I feel like I'm still relatively new here. This is a lot of, seems like always a lot of information to take in. I remember in past documents and reading, we bring in power from not just BP, right? There's 4 sources, correct?
Yes.
Are all those other sources substantially more cost?
No.
And are any of those options, like, can we get more power from those, or are we are taking the biggest slice of pie we can get out of them at this time?
We are. So you're speaking of our Grant County investments, which are currently costs our least cost resource and our Riverbend investment. And that is a power purchase agreement that expires in 2030. Those two resources are factored into this whole calculation, so they become in the next contract, they are netted off of our total retail load. Those existing resources come off first, and then the remainder is the net requirement on BPA. And that's what factors into our contract high watermark allocation, is that net requirement. So they take the existing resources off the top. The Grant County resource, we have a fixed amount. We're not going to be able to get any more of that.
Is there a date that that goes away, or is that something that we will continue to,
Yeah,
there's no sunset on that?
well, it coincides with their FERC license for those two projects, for those two dams. So as long as those projects are licensed, we're entitled to a portion of the output. Those current licenses expire in
40 something.
20, it's beyond the provider of choice contract. It's 2 different days. I believe it's 2054 and 2056. They're 50-year licenses and they were issued in the early 2000s. So that's a long-term commitment for us. We really enjoy that resource. It's wonderful.
We definitely, there's no more allocation that
No.
we can negotiate.
As far as Riverbend goes, that purchase agreement expires in 2030. The gas production at the landfill is increasingly unreliable. The curve is declining as far as generation there. There's no plans to expand the landfill or to bring in new fuel. So, and at the same time, that resource is our most expensive. So we are, it exceeds a tier 2 price. We'll just say that much. So we're not expecting to renew or to pursue a renewal of that agreement. So that is also incorporated in our contract with BPA, and that we've taken the steps necessary to remove that resource when our agreement expires in 2030. So that will come out.
You can see that.
Which you'll see, yeah, you'll see in that chart, there's a bump then in the tier 2 need because that generation comes off in year 2 of the contract. That was a great question.
Could have went south. We've never had it. Trying to figure out where I heard that. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Jamie? Thank you.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Jamie. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go down to new business. First item is our fiscal year 26-27 insurance renewal. I'm gonna invite Finance Director Mark Dunmeyer up. And looks like Brian Hartzell.
Yeah. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commission. So each year we go through an insurance renewal process. In June, those insurance policies initiate in July. And Brian Hartzell of Hagen Hamilton is always really helpful to staff and to the organization. So he's prepared a report that's part of my staff report. I just want to point out a couple things. So there's a table that I have in there that shows our different insurance products, the providers, and the budgeted amounts, and the change that resulted in what we had in our draft budget to the proposed. So we had some quotes that came in much lower, which was great. And Ryan will go over all of that. When Ryan's completed with this presentation, I did have one additional thing that's not on my staff report that I want to bring up prior to the commission taking action this evening. So, but I wanted to do that after Ryan has had a chance to present. So turn it over, Ryan.
Very good. Well, thank you for having me in for the annual insurance report. Welcome new commissioners. I have some exciting news. I mean, I don't get to sit at these meetings very often, and I do a lot of them for various enterprises and public entities. And so we get to talk about decreases on insurance, and I'll kind of go through that as we work through the report. I think that I'd like to start just as a reminder as you look at this. I think the most important thing that sometimes we don't spell out when we talk about insurance, especially as you're serving on the commission, is that, you know, part of what we protect you for is public entity official coverage. So just as a reminder, if you were to receive any sort of like demand letter or somebody alleging some breach of duties as you make decisions on this council, be sure to get those, you know, into Water and Light, and they'll get a hold of me. It's sometimes surprising what's covered in these contracts, but you have a lot of responsibility in serving and making decisions and providing very vital resources to, you know, the ratepayers. So with that comes liability, and we want to do our best to transfer that liability away from you personally. So plaintiff attorneys have a tendency to just name personally people that they're making a demand against. So just as a reminder, public official liability is included in the CIS package. So with that said, yeah, 7.1% insurance deduction this year, and a couple interesting, you know, developments across the insurance marketplace. It was a really good year in terms of, you know, convective storms. When insurance companies make money, they hold rates steady or they go down a little bit. So this is probably the largest percentage decrease I have. So market conditions are very favorable. So CIS builds towers. There's lots of insurance companies that participate in the city county insurance services program. So when we see them begin to stabilize and have good, you know, results when they close their books, means as a buyer, a consumer, you know, things go down. And so I was very pleased with that. The second part of that is the performance of Water and Light. Gosh, we just don't have a lot of claims. If you look on here, you know, our average claim cost over a 5-year period is $3,150, and those are just the ones I know about. I'm sure there's lots of small things that happen, but you know, those are the ones that get turned in. A little bit about the claims process. So CIS handles the claims, meaning that we'll have ratepayers and customers come in and say, you know, the food spoilage in the refrigerators because the power went out, or you know, we have a sump pump overflow or whatever. And so we want to send a professional adjuster out to take care of you know, those folks in our community, our ratepayers, our customers, and do a proper investigation. That takes a lot of responsibility off here. Water and Light has a $60,000 deductible we put in place last year, so it's cumulative. So as we go out and experience claims and we have to pay out, each claim builds until we exceed that amount. So, you know, this year we've only used just a little bit, 12,727 is what I have in my report of that deductible, and we got just a couple weeks left to go. So I think right now I don't see anything that's out there, but we're not quite through with 2 weeks left. So very, very good results on that. So between really good market factors and the performance, and one of the things we talk about a lot in the insurance business is risk avoidance. So really appreciate the crews. The safety, if you look at the property and casualty claims, and then you look at what's going on with the workforce, with the mod rate on the experience rating for the safe workers' compensation moving down to a 0.9, that was down from a 1.12, tells us our safety programs and initiatives are penciling out on paper in our favor as well. So anything under a 1's pretty good. So pleased with that result too. So you look at the two significant programs and the performance, and nothing but very positive results there. We have an earthquake market option, and the spirit behind excess earthquake was that historically we wanted to make sure we can just deal with property that's underground, meaning the water lines, perhaps if they were crushed in an earthquake. And so that's the reason for the excess above what we can get in the CIS program. And it's going to cover any property related structure, but I know the spirit behind that originally was making sure we're going to deal with those lines. That was the one coverage I was a little bit worried that was going to go up. That's pretty steady. nothing to report there. And then finally, cyber liability, that's been a little bit of a moving target the past 10 years. We're finally starting to see a lot of stability in that. I think, many buyers of this are getting a lot smarter in how they're training their employees and systems in place to early detection, and they're spending a lot more money on technology and preventative measures. So we're seeing a little bit of stability there. This year, when we went to the marketplace, we have been with, the current provider, Cowbell, for a number of years. And then what, transpired in the market is we were able to get an option from a company called Tokyo Marine, the TMHCC. Now, if it was $1,000, my recommendation probably would be, I don't know, is it worth the extra paperwork for that mark to complete and do, but there was a substantial discount if we take advantage of, what is equal coverage, I think, in that marketplace, and maybe to offset some additional savings by some proactive things I think Waterlight's done to make their system safe. And so this is an excess layer. CIS carries our first layer of cyber, so that's the first place that we would go if we have a cyber loss to take care of that first layer, and then this is our secondary layer on top of it. We rely on so much upstream and downstream providers to make sure their systems are secure. Because if they're attacked and they're down, how does that impact water and light? So one of the coverages we look at is this sort of dependent system coverage for, a contractor that's providing services that we rely on technology. If they fall, they don't have enough insurance, we've got to make sure we're backfilling that too. So included in the cyber is that as well. So a little bit of a savings there, which I think that would be recommended to consider. And then finally, there's a few construction programs going on, obviously, with Water and Light. So we have those set up and ready to go. And I think next year, obviously, I hope we can do 7.10% next year, but with a very large couple buildings coming on, that'll be a lot more of a challenge for me as working on this. So I think that good things are in place. I know they're starting on that. The insurance is in force on some of the course of construction that we have to do on those buildings as well. So love to answer any questions anybody might have for me.
Just a quick one for you, Ryan, on the $60,000 deductible. It seems like a good number. Does that make sense to stay there, or is it better to go up to like 100, or especially with the small amount of claims?
Yeah, good question, John. Thank you for asking that. 60,000 is the largest we can get the program right now with the size of Waterlight's premium. So we're at the very max. Okay. We staggered that a little bit. When we saw the numbers and the performances, as you mentioned, we looked at that and said, yeah, 60 makes sense. Let's get as much as we can get. So that's our program maximum.
Okay. Well, we have confidence that you'll bring it down another 7%.
That's steep. That'd be fun to do. Yes.
I don't even know how many years it was that I sat before insurance and saw it decrease.
Yeah, it's not common.
I don't even.
I'm a buyer on my own farm policy, and I'm in the business, and I look around all the time, and I can't get it to go down at all. So happy to see that happen here a little bit, and I think pretty good in the market. Like I said, a lot of other public entities. We'll see just a little bit of increase or stability at maybe expiring, but 7.10 is that's a pretty good number. So yeah, thank you for the work that the crews do at Water and Light for sure.
Well, thank you for your report. And then Mark, do you wanted to say something else?
The cybersecurity policy change or the provider change, with that, so there's an application that it's actually an assurance form, a declaration of known claims or circumstances. And that's something that that our IT manager knows all about. So he reviewed that, but we noticed after the packet went out that the signature on that is supposed to be an officer of the company. And so we felt like it would be appropriate to recommend to the commission that the mayor be authorized as a part of the resolution to sign this form. And I did bring copies. It's just a one-page form. I can pass that out if you'd like to see it.
Sure. Thank
Yeah.
you. Go ahead.
manager Woodward, indicated that we meet those circumstances or the assurances that are requested on there, so.
Okay.
So what we'll do is mayor can sign that as well as the clerk of the commission will also have that sign it as well.
Okay.
Since he's the one that's in the know on that stuff, so. So the request then would be for approval of the insurance renewal. And there's a form that SAFE requires that we have signed that would initiate that coverage. And it's also in the packet for the mayor to sign.
Okay.
This additional form that I just.
Perfect. Sam, can you read a motion that includes all that?
Yes, I can. Okay, so we're gonna be suggesting a motion to approve the payment of insurance premiums quoted in your packet at page 64. This includes premiums for property liability, workers' comp, excess earthquake, fiduciary liability, and cyber insurance. As budgeted in the 26-27 proposed budget, authorize the mayor and clerk of the commission to sign the attached fiscal year 26-27 safe workers' compensation insurance renewal form, and also the NetGuard plus cyber liability insurance declaration of no known claims or circumstances. That is the motion.
Do I have a,
So moved.
okay, a motion from Commissioner Anderson, excuse me.
I'll second that.
Second from Commissioner Johnson. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you both.
Thanks for Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love it. We'll get you these forms, okay, Mark?
What's that?
We'll get you these in a little bit.
Okay, great.
Thank you. All right, next item up is Fox Ridge Reservoir property purchase, with James Burke. It's going to be recording.
Good evening, James Burke, Engineering Operations Director. So we've been in negotiations with a property owner. That's located up behind Fox Ridge Reservoir. We talked about this before in regards to this, but they own approximately about 11 acres up there, just located just north of Fox Ridge Reservoir. We're looking at purchasing 2.56 acres. It's on the western portion of that. That property has been looked at before by us, and we classify it as something that has been of interest for quite some time now, for a future reservoir number 5. So there's also on that property, within that 2.56 acres would be our easement. So we have 2 finished water transmission mains that are within that proposed property as well. We've been working with the property owner. We came up with a price. We had appraisal completed. And what we agreed upon was $320,000 for that 2.56 acres and associated costs. So what we're looking at next steps is for our commission to approve that, enter into a purchase agreement with that, move forward with additional surveying, get the lot line adjustment done, and proceed with the finalization of that transaction.
It just shows the.
There's a figure in the commission memo as well, in the back, figure number 1, if you have questions in regards to that property there. You can open it up for questions.
Was the purchase price at the appraised amount?
It was. So the appraisal came in at $320,000. We negotiated with the property owner. They came back with some costs in regards to covering closing costs, such as closing costs, title insurance. There'll be some additional surveying out there as well. Overall, it was pretty quick in regards to that. They're looking at selling that property in the near future. So we've been in discussions with them for 3 to 5 years now, or longer, in regards to this purchase. It just so happens that the timing's right at this point.
Yeah, it makes sense to add it with it being right there and then all the growth that's happening out in that area.
It's the growth, and just looking forward to our future. We have options. We have 2 reservoirs that are, were built back in 1918, 1914. They're old reservoirs, reservoirs 1 and 2. So at some point in the future, those will be decommissioned, and be looking at building a new reservoir. That's an option. Even if we didn't build back there, it's still, and we lock that piece in. We don't want development back there. We have 2 transmission lines going through there. So it's ideal to lock that property up for between the water and light.
Thanks for working on that. I know you've been the key person talking to the Greenlease.
What's the elevation like through there? Is that?
It's
If
fairly,
you're-
it's fairly steep through there. It has some challenges in regards to elevation and slopes and so forth, but it's wooded as well.
Any other questions right now?
Where will the funds come from?
Well, we have capital funds designated in the 2000 and in this year's or next year's budget coming up. So we have, we made some adjustments to that. Mark we'll talk about that in there. We had originally had this out for a couple of years. It was 320,000 budgeted, I think 3 years out. The property owner came to us and said they're looking at selling. So we moved that up this year. So that's one of the changes that you'll, Mark Demar will be talking about in our financial budget. We changed that. I think it was to $340,000 for, because we have to do some additional surveying out there, closing costs, and
Do we have the funds?
Yes.
we do have the funds.
They're currently in the waters department.
Yeah,
Okay.
water capital budget.
Yeah, will come out of reserves.
All right. Okay. Sam,
Thank you.
You have a motion?
Right, I'm gonna read a very long-winded motion, and this is designed to get us the authority to move into escrow, move into a lot line adjustment application with the county. Also provide for the surveying and for the expenses that are necessary to close on this sale. So with this motion, you won't see this come back to you. This will happen. So that's where we're going with it. So here's the motion. Motion to approve the purchase of approximately 2.56 acres of land in tax lot 4513-1200 from E. Malcolm and Suzanne R. Greenlease for a price of $320,000 together with fees and costs under the terms of a purchase agreement prepared by Water and Lights Legal Counsel. That would be me. Conditioned upon a lot line adjustment approved from Gamble County with Water and Lights adjoining tax lot 4513-1100. And further authorize the general manager to approve necessary surveying to complete the property acquisition and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign all necessary documents on behalf of Water and Light to close the sale, including but not limited to the purchase agreement, escrow documents, deeds, and the Yamhill County lot line adjustment application. That's the motion.
Do I have a motion to accept that?
Motion to approve.
Okay,
That's good then.
I have a motion from Commissioner Johnson, a second from Commissioner Elmer. Any other discussion, questions? All right,
And just for your information, these documents have been signed by Greenlease since they're all prepared to go. So we're just,
Okay.
once we have the mayor and the clerk sign, we're off and running.
Any idea how long it will take to get the lot line adjustment done?
It's a 5 to 6 week process, assuming, smooth sailing with the county. I've reviewed it with the county and they don't see any problems.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sam.
okay, so we have a motion on the table, so all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passed.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jane
Thank you.
and Sam. All right, next item up is Joe Dancer Park Riverfront property. I'd like to invite John Deeds to present.
Sure. So, probably the easiest map to look at is figure 2 in the memo. So what we're talking about, so Adam mentioned the Miller property, which is on the northeast side of Marsh Lane,
Mhm.
above what we call the Wagaman property. The Wagaman property has 2 parcels. Has a 5-acre parcel and then a roughly 61-acre parcel. In 2002, Water and Light leased approximately 22 acres of the Wagaman property to the city for a portion of Joe Dancer Park. And then Water and Light retained the rest, and that's what you see. Most of that is farmed. There's about 12 acres that is along the river that's not farmed. That's the piece to the east of the leased area, which would be the dark area on the drawing. What we're looking at doing is potentially, and will be the commission's decision, would be to sell potentially sell the city the 5-acre parcel of the Wagaman property. And then the 12-acre parcel or piece of the Wagaman 61-acre parcel to the city, along with transferring the leased portion to the city. Doing that in assuming a lot line adjustment, since most of that, or all of it is in the county currently.
It's all.
And then Water and Light would retain roughly 26 acres to the northwest of the current road through the park, which adjoins our current property. So I think what we're looking at is a head nod from the commission to move forward with potentially having those conversations with the city and then working up a potential price for the city. Miss anything there, Sam?
So right now, we're just agreeing to move forward to.
Correct.
To negotiate.
Yes.
So it would make it that one side of the road all belongs to Water and Light, the other side of the road is the city.
Correct.
Instead of kind of a
Mishmash.
dash.
And most of that's in the floodplain.
Correct. There's a little, roughly maybe acre and a half, maybe 2 acres on the 5 acre parcel of the water property. That's not in the floodplain.
Anybody have any other questions? Are you okay with having John move forward with discussions?
Yes.
And of course, it would come back to the commission?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, looks like we have approval.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe just with the commission's permission, we'll just have the minutes reflect that there's a consensus for staff to enter negotiations to sell and transfer a portion of the Wagner property adjacent to Joe Dancer to the jurisdiction of the city. And document it that way in the minutes. If that's okay.
Yep, do you want us to vote on that at all? I mean,
If
just say aye.
if you're all in agreement,
We all say yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
there'll be a text. We'll just-
Okay.
We're not asking you to commit anything tonight.
Okay.
So, you know, we're heading in the right direction.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes.
All right, next item is resolution 2026-9, an update to the electric wire plan. James Burke, you're gonna come back up. With a friend.
Every year we come back around June, sometimes May, to talk about wildfire plan mitigation. And then we're gonna talk about the wildfire mitigation plan. In recent years, there's been a lot of discussions in regards to wildfires, in the wildfire season, and it comes up, and there's a lot of risk tied to that. At Rainbow Water Night, we do have a wildfire mitigation plan for electrical, and we also have one for the watershed up there as well. For the electrical watershed, or for the electrical wildfire mitigation plan, that's a mandated plan, so we're required to have that by the state. For the watershed management plan, it's a best management practice for that. So I have Brent Scribner here. He's our electrical engineering supervisor. He's going to talk a little bit about the details that go into our electric wildfire mitigation plan and what we do every year to make sure we can prevent and manage that risk within our community. Back in 2021, this is when we first came forward with this, as the state mandated this back in 2021, that we are required to have our wildfire mitigation plan because we for all consumer-owned utilities. The commission approved the original one back in 2022 for this. As part of those resolutions, that resolution is resolution 2022-7. That requires us to bring this plan back every year for approval to the commission. So every year you're going to see this plan come back. Every June we'll go back and visit this. There's a lot of discussion goes on internally about this plan throughout the year, especially as we approach May, June, July, and we start looking at the wildfire seasons. And we try to coordinate that with other utilities too. Brent's going to talk a little bit about BPA, how that works. We'll talk with other utilities as well and see what they're doing. And some of the best management practices we do to mitigate those concerns throughout our community. So I'm going to hand it off to Brent, and he can hopefully walk us through and explain why we have this plan and some of the details to it.
Yeah, so I thought I would just give a kind of a high level overview of kind of the structure of the wildfire plan, how we're going to be using it this year as we progress through the wildfire season, and some of the recent changes to it. So just a quick little bit about our utility. So from a lot of our utility, the electric service territory is urban. That is generally low wildfire risk. There's just not a lot of ability for it to spread. And so the majority of this plan is going to be focused on the rural half of our utility, which is going to be up in the Peavine areas and the Baker Creek Hills. That area has been studied by the state, worked with Oregon State to come up with standard way of addressing wildfire risk based on burn probability and fuels content. And that area of our system is classified as moderate risk. And so we've adopted classifying that area as not high fire risk. If we classify an area of our system as high fire risk, it's subject to more stringent inspections, tighter coordination with our joint use partners. And at this time, there just hasn't been an identified need to classify that area as a high risk area of our system, especially based on the Oregon Wildfire Risk Explorer results. So the primary risks that have been identified in that area of our system has been primarily due to vegetation. The majority of faults that we see in our system are going to be storm related, wind, blowdown that catches on the lines, catches fire, falls to the ground, and then starts a brush fire. And so to mitigate and address those risks, we, in recent years, over the last 3 to 4 years, have doubled the amount of tree trimming hours that are spent. And we are actually starting to see a reduction in the number of faults that we've seen. So to date this year, and even through the December 2025 winter storms that we had, during that winter storm, we had very little like blowdown related faults in that area of our system. And so far in that area of our system, the Baker Creek and West Peavine Hills, we've only had 3 vegetation related outages this year to date from January 1st. So additional things that we do other than tree trimming, in recent years, we've started an infrared inspection program so we can drive around with a thermal camera and we can just look to see, are there connections that are getting hot? Is there anything that could potentially be an ignition risk from that? We're also doing annual patrols. We just completed annual patrols for this year in advance of fire season and found a couple areas to direct the tree trimmers to focus on that and do some additional line trimming. And so that's something that we do annually in those areas of our system, in addition to our normal 3-year rotation that our system is on for vegetation management. So as we progress through the wildfire season, we have a couple response strategies that get more progressive as the risks get higher. So the very first level is coming into fire season, which we're in now. As of June 2nd, we've put all of our kind of electronic field devices into a non-reclose mode, which just prevents, if there is a fault on the system, everything operates normally, but it's only going to operate one time and then it's going to stay de-energized so people can go and inspect it. So normally outside of wildfire season, we would allow it to attempt to re-energize it and reclose a couple times to increase reliability. We don't do that during fire season, just one shot. As storms are going to come, heat events, wind events, we're going to work closely with the National Weather Service. We're a partner with the National Weather Service. They're giving, at this time, weekly fire weather briefings. And then as an event starts, they're going to start doing daily briefings. And so we'll have good situational awareness. We'll be tracking the weather, wind, fuels, moisture, and make a determination if there's a severe event that's going to require us to go into a more protective mode. We can change the programming on those devices in the field to into a more sensitive mode that's going to minimize, if there is a fault on the system, it's going to minimize the amount of energy that goes into that fault to try and minimize the risk of an ignition. The next step past that is if there is just such a severe event that we cannot tolerate the risk of an ignition, you would do a public safety power shutoff. Historically, we have not needed to do a public safety power shutoff. That seems hopefully unlikely that we would need to do one because the area is not classified as a high risk area, but it is possible. Recent changes that we made to the plan. So a couple years ago, we added the infrared inspection program to the plan. We've made a couple changes kind of on the clerical side. There was the change related to the McMinnville Fire District, and so they were updated in the interagency coordination as the new agency would be coordinating with for that. And also there were some changes, I think last year, about the Oregon Wildfire Risk Explorer, how the wildfire risks were being calculated. And so the plan was updated to reflect those risks at that time. So that's what I have. Any questions about that?
I'll also, you'll be seeing on like social media, we have really emphasized a lot of social media in regards to wildfires coming up. So as the season heats up and things get drier out, you'll start seeing notifications come out. You'll see red flag warnings come out as well. We track this internally, so our line crew does, and our engineering staff as well, does a lot of driving up in the hills there, making sure things that they're off the line. There's a lot of coordination between Gene, our superintendent for the line side, and Brent also to coordinate that. So there's a lot of communication that begins to dry out there, to make sure we proactive on this.
Do you have any drone technology we can use for?
That's a great question. We're looking into drone, and that's something in our budget. John can probably talk a little bit about that. Or
Yeah, we actually have a drone in our budget, this coming year. So that
And
will be
then-
something we'll look at.
yeah, for not for the electrical side for making the water line, but up for BPA. I believe they do use the drone up there. Is that correct?
Yeah, they have,
Through the watershed.
they have a certified pilot based out of their Chemawa district.
Imagine that would be helpful with the infrared drone.
I believe I heard a rumor that the drone we had eyes on had an infrared camera.
Looking over there.
Eventually figure out who it gets to
Yeah.
by faces.
Yes.
Who's grinning the most?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Those ground patrols, is that fairly difficult with the terrain?
No, most of our lines are along the roads. You'll see crews up along Peabody and so forth. When it gets dry out, well, I'm coming on Saturdays and Sundays also to drive the lines. Occasionally we get some concerns there. Brent, Gene, they both track the weather very well and make sure we're on top of it. We have communications. We get, updates as well, National Weather Service in regards to that. So over the last couple of years, we've refined it very well. We don't have a huge service area, but it is, inside the city of McMinnville, it's a little bit different. And as you go up to the hills there, there's more concern up there. Every year it gets a little better.
Like the fact that we're proactive.
Yes.
Okay, so we have, go ahead. We have resolution 2026-9.
Yes, to resolution 2026-9, a resolution by the city of Bentonville acting by and through its Water and Light Commission and updating the electric wildfire mitigation plan. That's 2026-9.
Do I have a motion to approve? A motion from Commissioner Anderson, for a second.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Johnson. Trina.
Yes, Mayor Morris,
Yes.
Commissioner Elmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
And then Sam, or you, or am I gonna, we're pulling E off of the agenda? Do you need a statement about that?
I don't.
I'll make a quick statement in
Okay.
regards to that.
Okay.
So for the watershed wildfire mitigation plan, well, we're gonna be pulling that off the agenda tonight. As in the exhibits, we have two exhibits in there. One's the Bonneville Power Administration, their wildfire mitigation plan. And then also the city of McMinnville's. We have the older versions in the PDF, so we're gonna bring that back in July
Okay.
to commission for approval. You want
County in there too?
the county's in there, theirs is from 2009, and that hasn't changed. But the two that didn't change was the EPA and the city of McMinnville. They're up to, not every year do they change them. Sometimes you skip a year, and that's what happened this year. Last year they didn't change them, so sometimes they say no, there's no changes to it. They don't bring them back every year for adoption, reapproval. But for this year, Bonneville, BPA, and the city of McMinnville, which is by Mason Bruce Jordan, they have some changes to theirs. But we have this exhibit. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna pull it from tonight's agenda, bring it back in July, and
Okay.
you won't see any changes to ours, our plan. The exhibits will be.
The documentation needs to be updated. Okay, so he's removed. Thank you. So at least James is gonna stay in print. I'm not sure if you're part of this next one or not. So the next one is change order number 1 on the zone 2 pump station project, and zone 2 project is up by Foxford Road.
So I'll kind of go over zone 2 real quick. So zone 2 pump station project, that was awarded by McMinnville Water and Lights Commission back in November of 2025. So we have whole homes up there. They're doing putting in some homes up there, and they're requiring water. So that's for zone 2. So we have a pump station that was built in the 90s, and we're at this point we got some money from Holt Homes, which was granted through the city through a grant. So in regards to all that, we're upgrading our pump station, and that requires 4 pumps and a number of other accessories to that to get water over to zone 2. The project's going well. We're about 23% complete on the project, and the project is being worked on by Hallworth Construction. The anticipated completion date hasn't changed. It's still substantial completion would be December 31st, 2026, with the final completion of January 31st, 2027. So everything's going fine there. And it's been a good project thus far. All the procurements are going well. We have some critical procurements that were in place, like the pumps and the electrical equipment. Those have been, the submittals were approved, and those are on target to meet that substantial completion date to get everything up and going. So that's good. A couple of things came up in the drawings. We did notice that we had some omissions in the drawings. So one of the omissions that was the big one was it's on the change order here. We have one change order tonight. One of the change items is the AC HVAC system on there. So in order to keep the pump station cool, all the electrical equipment, everything in those hot days, we need an HVAC system up there. So that HVAC system's a change order for $35,652.98. So that's change order number 1 on this one. Change order number 2 is going to be a credit, and that credit is for basically changing out the type of electrical conduit we're using. And it's a credit to us for $5,385.32. And then item number 3 of this change order is we have some contingency built into the actual project itself. It's $50,000. That contingency is called extra work as authorized. It's an allowance. In order to not change the overall cost of the project is currently, what do we got here? It's $1.6 million. We're going to make a change to that section of the contract of extra work as authorized, and that $50,000 will be reduced down to $19,732.34, making this a no-cost change order.
So no cost change and no time change.
Right. So I've notified Holt Homes on this because we have been updating them they have an extension agreement with them on this. So they're aware of the change. They're aware where we're at with the construction and everything. They'll be coming out on Thursday for a site visit, and they'll be coming back out in July for another site visit. So we've had good communication with them on the project status as well.
Okay. Any questions for James? No? Sam, you have a motion?
I'm going to suggest this language is the motion. Finding the change work is within the scope of the public improvement contract. A motion to approve change order number 1 to the zone 2 pump station agreement dated December 9th, 2025 to complete the pump station building improvements for zone 2 distribution system, and authorize the mayor and clerk of the commission to sign.
Great, need a motion?
So moved.
So Commissioner Elmer, a second.
Second.
Commissioner Johnson, any additional questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
All right, this is a very full night for us. All right, next item up is the 26-27 budget. Mark Dunmire, come on back up.
So I have a presentation again this evening. Okay, so our 26-27 budget now in proposed form. So we're at the goal line. So for budgets in the packet for consideration for adoption with or without changes. So there is some changes, and I'll go over those this evening, to the light and the water divisions. They're also in the back of the document. The last 3 pages, indicated that in my staff report. So, but I'll talk through these changes a little bit differently here. And we'll look at those pie charts again that we had in the draft budget for the total budget for the water and the light divisions. And you'll see those updates in those pie charts, and then we'll talk about some key takeaways at the end. So we'll start off with the light division. And you can see that we've got some expense changes, some revenue changes, and then how that changes our cash. And then those changes are also over a couple of fiscal years. So 25, 26 and 26, 27 here in the light division. So I'll start off with the expense changes. So we've got 3 of them, all operating expense changes. That first one, the COLA change, we had 2.5% COLA in our draft budget, and that was done back in March, and we used the February CPI to give us an estimate of that 2.5%. Well, after the draft budget was completed, we went back and looked at that, and the CPI has gone up, likely from fuel prices and other things that are driving costs higher. And so we have increased that to 4% to bring us more in line with where the CPI is at right now. So that change increases the light division operating expenses 31,212. We'll see that also in the water division, because those COLAs go in both divisions. We've got a personnel change there. That change it was a position that was in the draft budget, but it was a 0.7 FTE, so a part-time position, and we're proposing to make that a full-time position. That's a facility maintenance worker position. And with that change, then we would not have the seasonal worker position that we had proposed in the draft budget. So the combination of those 2 for the light division is an increase of $9,343. And then we just heard about the insurance reductions due to those quotes coming better than what we had put in the draft budget. So for the light division, that was a $36,500 decrease. So that the net change for expenses is this $4,055 increase. All in fiscal year 26, 27. So on the revenue side, these are non-operating revenues. So in May, the commission authorized the sale of some clean fuel credits, and we did execute that after. And so that sale generated $246,050. And so we included that in the 25, 26 estimated actual, that we didn't have that in the draft budget. So with that additional revenue, it actually generates some additional cash or interest earnings in 26, 27, because we begin the year with a higher cash balance than what we had budgeted. And so we estimate that we'll receive an additional $9,842 in interest earnings from that. So the total change in cash, we have an increase in our cash of $5,700. So because we've got this, basically we have additional revenue, but we also have additional expense, and the net of the 2 is that $5,700. That's for fiscal year 26, 27. Overall, from both fiscal years, we actually have a cash increase of a little over 251,000. So when we go to look at this in the pie charts, so we're just going to look at the 26, 27 numbers, not the whole thing. And it's just going to be those changes that you'll see that I've got highlighted there for the expenses, revenues, and cash. So there's what the pie chart looks like, and visually it looks the same because these are small changes, so it really doesn't change the numbers. But I just wanted to point out that those changes are reflected in the total revenues, expenses, and the cash change, which is a decrease of that 16,742,000. So that is the light division. So we go to the water division. Again, see those same operating expense changes, that cost of living increase amount, personnel change. And then, of course, the insurance change is actually higher. We get a bigger reduction in the water division than in the light division, and that's because of that additional earthquake coverage. That's attributed to the water division. So, and then we also talked about the land purchase that the Greenlease land or property purchase. So it was budgeted at 300,000 in fiscal year 28-29. And instead, we're going to pull that forward to, we anticipate that closing in early next fiscal year. And we put that in at 340 to cover the additional costs above the 320. And so we have an increase then of expenses in the 26-27 year, 318,000. And then again, we've got some changes on the revenue side. So the additional revenue that we have here in 25-26 is from our timber sale that Brent talked about earlier. So we had that timing. We estimated that was actually going to complete later and into next fiscal year. So we had budgeted that we would be receiving 399,000 in 26-27 on that sale. And instead we've collected that plus a bit more in 25-26. So the net change there is 166,900 higher, but for fiscal year 26-27, it's a decrease. And then again, because we have that additional cash, coming into fiscal year 26-27, it generates some additional interest estimated. So we have a revenue reduction of 376,000, and the bottom line change in cash 695 for 26-27, but overall it's an increase of 170, just under 171,000. So again, looking at it with that highlighted, you'll see 26-27 highlighted. You'll see those numbers I've indicated there in blue. You'll see those on the pie chart here on this screen. These are larger numbers, but they again really don't impact the way this pie chart looks, just because of the size of the revenues and expenses. So we have end up with a cash decrease of 11,299. We did have one additional change that wasn't in the budget document. I knew about it, but I forgot to fix it. I apologize. So we'll have an updated org chart with the connector that was missing. So it's kind of funny when you look at it in the document, it just looks like part of the org chart. It's just sort of stranded. It doesn't flow right. So right. So we'll fix that. So takeaways. So the changes are favorable in total. Light 252,000, water 171. We do have operating losses. We've talked about that. They 26-27 forward, you'll see those in the budget. We also don't have rate adjustments included, which is a factor in those losses. Those rate increases, rate adjustments, however, they would be included only after the commission decides to take action at any time on those. So we don't include those as a point of doing the budget. So you don't see those in the out years of the projection. Also not in the budget is the BPA's Columbia River System operations litigation. That's because we're really not certain on that yet. We do have strong non-operating income. So light divisions average 2.9 across the projection, and water is 4 million. And our cash balances are dropping because of the operating losses in the capital acquisition. But we also look at our cost of service every couple of years, both in the water division and in the light division, and those help us to stabilize our operating and non-operating results as well as cash. And so water, we're getting pretty close. Anticipate that coming to the commission for the first look in July. And then light is planned to start later in fiscal year 26-27 with the commission receiving first presentation on that in early 27-28. So we continue to look at that. And then finally, of course, the capital is dominated this year by the construction of the new facility on Marsh Lane. So that's the budget changes. Is there any questions?
Any questions?
Nice work.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
makes sense.
A lot of people are involved in this, so not just me. So, yeah.
I think it really helps when we break it apart like we've done. It makes it much easier to digest over time.
It really is, especially doing each month,
Mhm.
a different part and pulling it all together and looking at a draft and we final. So yeah, it is well presented.
Good job. Did you have a motion that you want to read on it? Or you want-
Yes.
Okay.
So I was really asking the
Thank you.
commission for a motion to adopt the proposed water and light fiscal year 26-27 budget with the changes as proposed by our finance director, Mr. Dunbar.
Perfect. Do I have a motion? to accept?
Motion to accept.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson, do I have a second? Mayor Anderson, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Mark.
You bet.
All right. Now we're gonna move on to general manager's report. Did you want to share anything off of here?
I did have one item that's come in recently. Looks like we were awarded $100,000 grant for security upgrades at
Oh.
the Foxford Reservoir site. So
Nice.
we'll be probably at a future meeting having,
Okay.
that conversation about that.
Great,
Right.
good job. Good job. Any commissioner have any questions about his report? Always good, it's always
Again,
detailed, I
It's
appreciate
a
it.
lot of information. It's nice to good basis of what's going on.
Going on every day.
Yeah, it's always good to read.
It's nice to see the picture of Tom getting the award too.
Yeah. Nobody was able to go to that, were they?
So,
No, too bad. But that was good. Okay, well, if there's no questions, then we're gonna move on. Any commissioner have any comments or anything they want to bring up? Good. And then the financial information is in your packet. Are there any questions in regards to those? All right. All right, so we will now be going into an executive session. There is no further action to be taken by the commission this evening. So we will not be returning to open session. I'd like to ask Council Sam Justice to please read the citation to take us into an executive session.
We'll be going to executive session on two matters. First, pursuant to RS 192-660 sub F, to discuss information the records are exempt from public disclosure under RS 192-355 sub 9 sub A, relating to confidential or privileged records, and RS 40.225 attorney-client communications. Also, the second session pursuant to RS 192-660 sub 2 sub F, to consider information records exempt from public disclosure under RS 192-345-23, revealing security measures to protect individuals, building and property information processing, and RS 192-660 sub 2 sub P, to consider matters relating to cybersecurity infrastructure and responses to cybersecurity threats. We had any media with us tonight. They'd be cautioned not to share anything out of these sessions and into the public realm. We will not be making any decisions in the executive session, and meeting will be adjourning in the executive session, not in the public